Bart, how are you today?
Hey, Marcelo, I'm doing great. Great to be here and see you.
Nice to see you. It's been a while
It
since
has.
you and I we had a chat. So I just want to catch up with you, see how things are going. But before, and then we also want to talk about ecosystem. Um,
Okay.
then how sales reps now can take advantage of ecosystem, first line leaders, and how they can collaborate now with other departments. But
Okay.
before we go there, I want to talk about you. I just want you to give a quick background about yourself. What have you been up to, and what are you excited about today?
All right. Well, I'm excited to be talking with you. We haven't caught up in a while, but the to go back our history, and then we'll weave in some stories, I guess, is we worked together at Splunk, so we had the beautiful experience of building, I think, organically from very small company to a big company, and learning all of the difficulties, but how to collaborate cross-functionally, right? That's kind of the biggest part of the success that we found. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's how the success would happen for us, when we started working together, because I fell into the trap like many early in my career. I was thinking about me. It was just me. ISR, operations, value consulting. You had Doug May on, who I learned everything from Doug May,
Yes.
enablement, leadership enablement, sales process focused, skills development. Like I had all of these different jobs. And what I ended up realizing is that these are all ecosystem roles that play into how sales, pre-sales, post-sales face the customer. And if you don't think of all of them, then I
Mhm.
think what ends up happening is the customer experience and the seller's experience. So the seller is the customer internally, sellers, pre-sellers, and post-sellers. Their experience diminishes, and then the end customer experience diminishes without the ecosystem. And it all has to be thought of holistically. And I got that part later in my career. But
So
we
let's
did a lot
dive
of it
into
together.
that. Let's dive into that, right? Can you give me a few examples throughout your career that you start now, like understanding the concepts of ecosystem, and who was there for you, and then how do you map that out, and then how you got here? I think people want to hear from that.
Yeah. Well, so everything's been changing so much, but if I think back to the early days, one of the pervasive concepts for me was I was always a business person in my mind. I wanted
Hmm.
to talk value and talk about how I could help buyers achieve an outcome or solve a big problem. But there's always a technical component to that, when we sell in SaaS technology. And we've all been through the evolution where it's perpetual licenses to term licenses to SaaS tech,
Yeah,
and it keeps getting more complex. And
and
it's
now
much,
consumption based.
yeah, it's consumption based as well now, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of when you think back of it, about all of that, there's a marriage or a complement between sales and pre-sales or architects, the technical aspect. That's a big part of the ecosystem. And that relationship, sales and technical, that face the customer, and then post sales, even, right? We
Right.
talk about layer a lot: land,
Yeah.
adopt, expand, renew. You have to have a common link between those functions, a baseline, so that the collaboration of that selling team serves the customer the same way through their journey. And then it becomes it's way easier to engage the customer over their life cycle, because it's all done in a consistent way. That's one of the ecosystems in the company.
Hmm.
Then there's the whole back office that serves that go-to-market sales team ecosystem. They
Hmm.
don't think, sometimes when we're in those roles in the back office, we don't even think about it that way. We think about just doing our job. If I'm building some training content, as an example,
Hmm.
or if I'm building a compensation plan in operations, as an example, you have to serve in a complementary way all of the roles so that you get compound benefit of them all pursuing a common objective. And almost every company that I talk with, they don't do it. They struggle to figure that out because they're so deep into their business. They're moving so fast and they're having some results, but I call it somewhat, they're successful in spite of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if they thought about all of the pieces fitting together from the very beginning, the results would be exponentially better. And that's looking at the ecosystems as collaborative to serve the go-to-market team in the field. And it's a hard thing to do, but you have to think about it from day one. That's what the executive team's supposed to be talking about.
So when a company is going fast, they're approaching that 150, $200 million range. And then you have a fast train now coming at you, and then they're trying to get you $1 billion, right? And then there's all these processes and people and hiring and culture, and you experience all that at Splunk and in your last role as well. Walk me through, like you live in that life, you live, the day to day, and where there's so many people just focus on their on themselves and their project, but if you just like take the time to breathe and collaborate with other areas, understanding other people, right? Kind of walk me through your experience on that.
So this is where I think there's let's say we'll start with the concept of the $100 million company. Mm-hmm. They hire $100 million a year in recurring or in revenue. They hire a CRO, but they don't give the CRO the ability to influence the entire go-to-market structure, the way all of the teams collaborate, the way marketing messages, the way the field teams speak in terms of value. Rather, they say you have to go make the number. And then the investors in the boardroom say, when they go to their quarterly review in the board meeting, they say, how many people can you hire? Can you go faster? Why are you not making the number? Why? Well, they essentially gave a VP a CRO title, and all they want them to do is chase revenue. And that is a failure. It's a failure on the investor's part. It's a failure on the board's part. It's a failure on the company's part. So the way we all did it and the way it worked is we had adults at the table very early in our journey, at Splunk. $40 million as in recurring revenue, 2 former executives in go-to-market that have done it before. So Godfrey Sullivan as the CEO, who had done go-to-market and channel, Tom Schodorf as the CRO or the SVP of field operations, who had run revenue businesses globally, and a wonderful marketing function that knew brand and awareness was one thing, sales execution, creating pipeline, maturing it to opportunities and closing it was another thing. And that's why it worked so well at Splunk. But in the current state, I think what I see in the industry very often is companies, they want a CRO, they give a CRO title, but they give them the remit, or their job is to just go sell. And that's wrong, because then that's transactional. It has to be orchestrated cross-functionally from the inside of the company out to the field and out to the customer base with intent. You have to, it's a very strategic chess-like design process. You're thinking well ahead, quarters ahead, 18 months probably is max. And you design incrementally and improve quarterly and repeat and create patterns and adjust. Otherwise, all you're doing is chasing a number every quarter and you never get to scale. It just doesn't work.
That's very interesting what you said, Bart, because we're talking about persona, individuals that have the DNA, right? It's about recruiting, getting the right people.
Yep.
And you talked about, having a VP of sales doing a CRO job, but also that we can talk about, a sales rep doing a first line leader job.
Yeah.
To be
That's right.
The same approach, right? Because when you go from sales to first line leader, you have to understand as a CRO, how to navigate, how to implement your strategy within your territory.
Well, how do you learn that though? This is where,
Yeah.
comes back to the same problem, right? We've been doing this a long time, and as you get older and we look at the design of companies, you have the privilege of someone inviting you and saying, hey, help me look at my company and help me determine where we can become more efficient, how we can be more operationally disciplined, because it requires a holistic view to scale. Well, a seller that becomes a first line leader for the first time in their career, if they don't have a very strong learning path, a very strong coaching environment where they learn the principles of leadership and how you develop your team and how it is a skills-based methodical process that if you build the right skills and you keep the right level of willingness and encouragement within a team, you create resilience in a business at one team at a time. And then you get to expand in a meritocratic way, in a meritocracy where, hey, if you have the right skills and you're willing to do the job, you can become a first line leader. But we're going to teach you how to be an effective first line leader. We can't leave it to chance. Most companies just hire a first line leader and then they expect the first line leader to command an outcome of 5 to 6 sellers in a complex sale, and they've never done it before. So it's kind of like taking a VP and saying you become a CRO, but the only thing we're going to allow you to do is make the number. You can't influence the whole ecosystem, and that's just a failure. You have to provide. The company's responsibility is to teach the first line leader what to do, how to do it, what skills are important for our ICP, how often we're going to repeat those skills, how we're going to have a good culture. And then that is only still one piece of the equation, because then there's multiple lines of leadership above, that first line.
But also on the other hand, I expected though the person, the first line leader, to go outside of the company and be responsible for his own journey and his own success, right? Taking the course, taking the credits.
Yeah. Well,
if I ask you this question, Bart, how many percentage of first line leaders out there on the whole IT world that it just got promoted and they went on their lives, but they never stopped to understand, holistically how to do this right? What do you think percentage wise?
They fail almost all of them fail, literally. There's only a handful of companies that can say we hire from within and train a first line leader and teach them how to be successful at the job. And then you have a high percentage of conversion to success. But when companies do what you suggested, and they usually do, you go do your own training, do your own learning, figure it out. What you end up having is a bunch of fragmented teams doing it their own way. They don't talk. You have leaders that only look at numbers. They don't look at strategy. They don't look at skills. They don't look at interpersonal connectivity. They don't look at cross-functional collaboration. Sales leader, pre-sales leader, post-sales leader. They should all be talking. If they're serving,
nobody's teaching them.
Nobody's teaching them. They should be. It should be one framework: land, adopt, expand, renew, horizontal sales process, pods where sales, pre-sales, and post-sales collaborate, and then you measure leading indicators that influence lagging indicators of performance, and you adjust. That's how great companies get built. Otherwise, when you make the number, if you don't do it that way, you don't know why you made the number. You just made the number. And what you end up doing is you learn over time that you're building a book of bad business. Churn increases, discounts are high, value is low, customer acquisition cost is all over the place. These are things that a CRO and an executive team have to talk about constantly. Provided that's the remit. The title has to match the role. Okay. So that's the big problem, I think.
So, A question for you though: when you see a playbook coming down, and then we have a vision for the next 2 3 years. The CEO talked about what we're going to do. The board understanding of what we need to do to drive some KPIs, right? Can you talk about how that's, because a lot of people now have a perception in terms of salespeople and first line leader now that the playbook is being done on by their on somebody above, right?
Yeah.
But it's good to expose a little bit now that's done and how that comes down, trickle down to the field.
So yeah, this is called a great question. It's translating the message. You probably remember this. We were very diligent, and this is a decade ago. Early 2012. Tom Shordorf would say you have to translate the appropriate message. So if Godfrey was in one of our kickoffs, and he set a charter, if the message of the charter doesn't translate from CEO to CRO to VP of the geography to the regional sales director to the sales manager to the contributors, with pre-sales and post-sales all there. If it doesn't translate in every meeting that everyone executes, that this is how we're going to go win our vision and win our market, then it's a failure. And the only way that works is if everybody, if there is a portion of all of the teams that get to put their fingerprints and their hands on the process of building the playbook and the sales execution model or the field execution model. Because if you don't do it where everybody contributes and is collaborated on over every quarter, then what happens is the translation of the proper message from CEO to the contributor disappears. And guess what? The contributors in the field do whatever they want because nobody ever took the time to make sure the playbook matched at the ground level up to the CEO's wish. And that's the executive team's responsibility and the field leadership team's responsibility to do that. It's very hard to do, but you have to do it that way. Otherwise, it gets what we call it's diluted. The further away from the CEO you are down to the contributor, the less it matters in their mind.
Beautiful. So walking me through now, how was like for you, back at Splunk, where you had to grab the vision of the CEO, understanding the critical capabilities of Tom Shortoff was the president worldwide field, and you have to come in and put a playbook, executable playbook, not only from the vision and the message, but also the tools within the system, right? To drive the methodology. Walk me through that.
So back then, the beauty of it was Tom was the first to tell you, I don't have all of those answers, but you in this room, we all do. So we would get in a room regularly and he would have us problem solve to this exact same thing that you're describing. How are we going to go do it? What is the message going to be to get the market that we've defined? How does it translate to the teams? What do they say to each other? What do they do every day? What do they do every week? What do they do every month? What do we report on every quarter? And then how do we improve it the next time? And he let us design, build, and implement all of that cross-functionally together. And we did it in the room multiple times a quarter. Always at the end to look back, but we also did it in the beginning of the quarter to plan forward. So it was never only looking back at what you did in the past. It was at the same time saying, okay, what do we adjust based on what we learned and how do we make it better going forward? And we would roll it down to the field and put it in place and live by it. So if you recall, what we learned on day one at a kickoff, as an example, is exactly what we rolled out when you went back to the field to do your job. There was very little separation in what we talked about. We were going to discover value. We were going to find, build, and test champions. We were going to gain agreement on a mutual sequence of events and build a business case jointly and design an outcome. We were going to gain sponsorship to get agreement from the executive buyer or the economic buyer on it. And we were going to do this in constant collaboration with our champion. And then when we gained all the agreement and we signed the contract, we did a beautiful handoff with customer success, and they were going to deploy exactly what we sold. And then at the end of we went through this process thousands of times. Every quarter we did a 4-box. We did coaching. Did you discover let's go through your opportunities. Value-based? Did you align to value, corporate objective, strategy, initiative, the challenge in IT, and then how we would solve it? Did you build a business case? Let's call Doug May as an example. Doug, let's go through the value consulting team. Did we do business case? You had
to work, with all the functions and collaborate with all the functions. Say, hey, we're about to do this. We're about to go in that way. How do we properly set up for success? And how can I get you buy-in to work with me, right? And work with the company vision? And how do we translate that, to the field?
Yeah. So this is internal selling.
Internal selling, yeah.
So this is a great point. We were very good at internal selling at Splunk as a go-to-market team. We knew where we wanted to go, and we had to sell internally to get all of the cross-functional organizations in the same boat as us. And then we went and executed, and it worked exceptionally well. Most companies don't sell and design collaboratively internally. They say, here's the plan, go make the number. We did the opposite. You have to do both. Yeah, and so just like we sell to a customer externally, we would sell internally to our cross-functional team. And they would go, oh, that makes total sense. Sign us up. We're going to help achieve that. And we built all of the frameworks collaboratively, all the messaging, all the tooling, all of the coaching, everything we did. And we would repeat over and over and over. And we just kept making it better, making it better. But it's, and you grow within, and you had to do it with the ecosystem. So this is why it's interesting. I think you've settled on a compelling topic to bring people to talk about. The ecosystem within a company. It only gets established by selling a concept of building together, and no one does it naturally. So someone has to own the internal selling process to cross-functionally align and build a repeatable ecosystem motion so that you can go sell externally in a common way. It's very difficult to do. But it's good.
The best way to learn, it's just getting exposed. So I want to tell you that I was very fortunate be part of that journey with you guys and learning from the best and just being in Rome, just seeing how everything's done. Then I came to Databricks. I went to Databricks and I did the same thing with a different spin. Just keep getting better. So it's what you have said, Bart. A lot of people not just to hear, but also they need to feel it, and they need to understand, how to go about and working with different areas.
Yeah.
If you have to leave, one tip here though, for 2 tips. One for a company that's trying to scale, they're doing about 30 to 40, 50 million. Yeah. And also the sales rep and the first line leader now that wants to keep growing in their journey.
So, restate the question for me one more time.
So if you had to give one tip for a company that's doing about 30 to 40 million and they're trying to scale.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it would, without question, and this is where the conversations internally at said company become very difficult. In the early stages, up to about 40 or 50 million, you just figure it out. Mm-hmm. But then you have to, at some point, go and get into the minds of all of the people that were just figuring it out and bring the best practices and put it on paper and create your repeatable sales process. And then the playbooks derived from the sales process based on the sales plays that you go execute. If a company can get comfortable at that, documenting what they know works, not random third party, do it this way, organically from within, because the knowledge is in the room. The sellers, the pre-sellers, and customer success who interact with the customer have all the answers. They know all of the touch points, they know all of the friction points, and they should be used as the architects for the sales process, the tools, and the playbooks that get designed that take the company from 50 million beyond. And if you don't do it that way, what you end up getting is fragmentation and conflict. And I think that's the differentiator. That's how you scale a company.
Awesome.
Even so, you did this, but I know Databricks is a different beast, very large company now. But what you started fairly early, and you built Latin America. Were you the first LATAM employee?
Yeah.
You pattern matched, I'm sure. This is my skill set. This is what I learned, and I know. You learned from all of the people around you, and then you refined it based on what worked and what didn't work, and then you repeat. You bring everybody in that you hired, you teach them your process. Yep. They say, oh, maybe we'll tweak it a little bit here because I learned this from doing it out, and then you adjust it and you do it again and again. Yeah. That's how you built it. And you probably built a pretty good practice.
Yeah.
That's how it works. And so you have to start that very early, and then it becomes repeatable. Otherwise, sometimes it's difficult. It's difficult to retrofit when success is happening and nobody knows why.
Okay.
And that's the enemy to scale. Sometimes you just become successful, but then you hit a wall, and you haven't looked at why you've been successful. You don't know why you've been successful, so you can't figure out how to fix the problem. So you have to start very early by documenting it and measuring everything.
They can call me for coaching and mentorship, and I can help them.
Well, so this is the other thing. You think you know until you become you build enough scar tissue over time. You think you know all of this, and so this is where you have Schodorf comes in as he's probably in his mid-50s, probably my age. When he was running Splunk with Godfrey, who was older. I think Godfrey's probably in his mid-60s. These are guys that had seen it, they had done it, and they brought people that they knew were coachable, and they said, listen, let's go figure it out together. And we're not just going to go tell you to go do something. We're going to figure it out together and build it together. And we did that year over year, quarter over quarter. And you probably
I have a funny story about Schodorf in the office. When he first came over, and I was a Splunk, and we had a ping pong table, and we used to play almost every day because we were there, as a sales rep. And somebody said, "Hey, there's come Schodorf, he loves ping pong." I was like, "Yeah, I'll play with him." And he's go like, "But just don't beat him. Don't go easy on him." Man, as soon as we got on the table, all that went away, and we became very competitive. And,
so
so he's
pretty good. I can't beat him. He's a good ping pong player. I think he's just a highly competitive individual, but he doesn't really come off that way because he's very I call him a gentleman. But he was a proponent of coaching in private. And praising in public, which was one of Godfrey's tenets. Yeah. You have to be professional in front of everybody because we want to build a culture of collaboration, not a culture of fear. So you had private conversations, and then that was a coachability test. Yeah. If you weren't coachable, you weren't going to be able to stay, but no one would know. Yeah. So I think that worked very well for all of us.
We live and learn, make mistakes, we keep adjusting, and we keep moving on, making it better.
That's it. Yeah. Now what's really fun right now is the ecosystem concept. I love, like, finance for me is the best friend, right? When you're an executive, a go-to-market executive, if you don't believe finance is your number one partner, that's a problem. So a go-to-market executive, a CRO, or a senior vice president of sales, they should be speaking with finance, their CFO, literally on a daily basis. And because the business model and the plan that is being developed for the subsequent year is based on the productivity and capabilities of the CRO's team.
Mhm.
And if that gets out of sync, where finance and the board create a plan without the CRO, that's the end. That's the beginning of the end, because then all that happens is the CRO becomes someone that chases a number, and the number can be unrealistic,
Yeah.
which you don't know. You have to be constantly locked with your CFO and adjusting in real time, getting ready for the next year.
Otherwise, you're going to have unhappy sales organizations and high performers who will leave.
Yeah, unhappy sales organizations don't work. I think it's pretty pervasive right now. It's hard out there, but
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity for companies to reset and realistically build for the next wave of growth, rather than what happened maybe a year ago, where we overhired and then unrealistically set expectations that everything was going to stay the same, and nothing stayed the same. So now everybody's more pragmatic. And I think all of us that have been in the industry long enough, we see a great opportunity that there's another wave coming, and it will be pragmatic and intelligent leadership that commands the next wave of success in the industries.
That's great. Good advice. So, Bart, before we go, I want you to talk about Skillibrium and what are you up to next? And
well, so the beauty, so everyone asks, what is Skillibrium? Well, if you take, so 2 runs, right? Splunk from 40 million to 1.5 billion, and being a part of that journey and building all of the frameworks collaboratively. It was a combination of tools, methodologies, process, development, coaching. And then my time at OutSystems, which was the same, but a shorter period of time, 3.5 years, was roughly 100 million to 300 million. We found that there's patterns that should be repeated, and they all are based on the sales process, and building a sales process that's repeatable with playbooks that are repeatable, that are centered on certain skills that the salesperson has to have, the pre-sales person has to have, and the post-sales person has to have. And Skillibrium is a platform that brings all of that into one place. So it's where you learn, it's where you practice, it's where you do your job within a sales process and a playbook, and it's where you do coaching and remediation via 4-box coach, skills and abilities and willingness, all in the same place. And ultimately, we have a horizontal platform that is a single place for sales, pre-sales, post-sales, and leadership to do their jobs. And we're building this organically. It will take a long time to build it, but we're going to change an industry by doing it in a common way that is repeatable, very simple, and everybody can do it in one place, rather than having to, you know what context switching is? One app to a different app, to another program, to this, to search over here, learn over there. We don't have the tolerance for it as salespeople. And we shouldn't expect, executives should not expect their go-to-market teams to use 20 different systems.
Yeah,
they need to use one system, and that's Skillibrium.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So it'll be a long journey, but it'll be fun.
I'm looking forward to see what you guys do next, and looking forward to see more information about it. So it looks like a great platform, very bullish. So, but Bart, thank you for your time. I loved your insights. I love hearing from you.
Thank you, Marcelo.
At Splunk, and since I met you, you were a gentleman. I was prepped. I was ready. I was with the designer shoes. So I just want to tell you that I have a lot of love for you, and I learned a lot from you throughout the years.
Well, so that's mutual. I think we always said it. We all were coachable, and we all learned from each other, and that's why it worked. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to, we're going to collaborate again, and I look forward to being successful again together at some point.
Sounds good, Bart. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcelo. Okay, man.